welcome back to ILA On Air. I am Anastasia, CEO and co-founder of ILA Law, and this is where we bring to you short, sharp, 20-minute focused property finance questions, queries and topics from industry experts. We have an incredible community at ILA. We have brokers, solicitors, developers, lenders, investors, and we thought what better thing to do than sit them down and make the complicated simple. That's something we love to do at ILA. So 20 minutes, grab your cuppa, and let's get you up to speed. Today, I'm here with Jaz. Hi, Jaz.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. And today we're talking about making the conveyancing process simple. Now, I know what you're thinking, that's not possible, but it is, because Jaz has over 10 years experience in the property finance industry and has an incredible reputation for her client care, her speed, her delivery. And so what better person to bring in than you to sit down and tell us about the process? Because I think so many people don't know it. They don't know how it goes. So they then can't help their solicitors move it along or keep an eye on it. So take us back to basics and tell us about the process.
Okay, so I think with myself, if I was to buy a property, that's how I always see it. What am I looking for? So when I always say to clients, look for that perfect solicitor, make sure they have capacity, make sure the fixed fees, because I think that's one of the things that we still need to iron out. Just go from very back to basics of what can I get from my solicitor and what are my expectations? And once you've got that ironed out, I feel like then it should be like a nice, easy journey, because then they should be telling you the step-by-step guides and why it's taking so long, and there'll be that kind of conversation flowing. So I always say any solicitor that takes more than 40 cases, take a view on it, on where you're going to be on that number, really. When it comes to pricing, make sure you are looking at the fine terms. Don't come on to completion day and be like, wow, oh my God, my solicitor charged me another £500. It was always there. You just need to look at the fine print and maybe, ask your solicitor, is there going to be any add-ons? And then from there, I think then it's just a nice, easy process, really. In terms of what I mean by easy, I guess you'll find out what each person's role is. What is an estate agent's duty? What is a mortgage broker's duty? What is a solicitor's duty? Once you've got the offer accepted, I normally have clients come to me and say to me, Jaz, okay, my offer's been accepted. What do I need to do now? I
guess jumping in there, Jaz, I think a couple of things that have really come up that are really, really interesting. In terms of capacity, we use, obviously I'm a lawyer, ILA is a law firm. Sometimes I think, God, do people know what capacity means in the legal space? No, you've touched about the 40 clients. So Are we actually having that conversation with our solicitors to say, what is your capacity at? How many clients have you got on at the moment? Should that be a question people are asking?
Why not? I don't think people do it enough because they're so intimidated. And they're kind of well, that's a solicitor and I shouldn't maybe talk like this and talk like that. But the thing is, you're paying them. Why not? Make it like an interview. I would. If I'm putting my money somewhere it is, I want to know answers. I want to know where I am in that line. And if you think that number is too high, I don't know. I'm saying 40 because from my experience, I know that's all I can handle. I don't have 10 other people working for me.
Yeah.
Some solicitors may have higher, but then they've got a team of them and that might work for them. So I'm not ruling it out. I'm just trying to say, try and take a view on where you might be on that case file, because I think this is why we get such a bad name as solicitors, right? They don't answer emails, they don't answer calls. Oh my God, I emailed my client a week ago, we should have been completing. I don't even know if we're completing. And this is why, because so many solicitors are like factory workers and they're just taking on so much work.
Yeah. And then you think the fee correlates with that as well, to some respect. Do you think that? We're seeing a lot now, I can do your conveyancing for $199, 199, not 1,000 by the way, 199. You see these ridiculously low fees. And what's your thoughts on that as a first possible red flag?
Oh my God, nothing is for £199.
Not even ILAs.
So when it's too true to be good kind of thing, that kind of situation going on, that's just not the thing really. It is going to be so many add-ons. I'd want to know what I can get for £199. That would be my question one. What about my ID checks? What about my searches? Are they covering it all?
We see so much in ILAs as well. We have people who are slightly cheaper than us, but the posting, they'll charge you to post. They'll charge you for your ID checks. I really hear you on that point. Yeah. And so we're looking at capacity. We're looking at the fee. What is a rough, let's kind of get behind the curtain. What is a rough fee? It depends on the transaction, but can we give a bit of info on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't really hide away from it. So I guess anything less than 500,000, first time buyer, with a mortgage, you're looking at 1,500 plus VAT. And that's like a starting point, to be honest. There will be add-ons because the client has told me it's a leasehold transaction or it's a limited company. And like all these different various factors, or like, the mortgage is a specialist lender. And then so there's going to be so many more conditions attached to that mortgage offer. So I'm working that much more harder on your case than I would on an ordinary one.
Yeah. And do you do bridging work? Yeah. Yeah. So what would be that bridging? Because it's faster?
Yeah, it's faster. I mean, we say it's faster. I hope it's always faster. I still have it being so slow because what happens is some bridges, they have their own set of solicitors. So I'm the one who's acting for the borrower, and then we've got another set of solicitors, and it is sometimes so painful trying to get something across. Yeah. And the lender's thinking, well, we're completing on Friday. And I'm like, no, we're not. Yeah. We're nowhere near completion because the solicitor wants X, Y, and Z. Yeah. But in terms of fees brackets, I think that is a little bit higher. So we're looking about probably like 2,300-ish starting point when it's a limited company.
Yeah, sure. Okay, good. So this is like the first thing we're looking at. And then in terms of when to instruct a solicitor, like I said, I really want to kind of go back to basics. Like I'm a developer, I'm a consumer, I'm a first-time buyer, and I've got to file my property and then I instruct my solicitor?
Yeah, I have some people do it before.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's always better once you get an offer accepted because you just don't know when you're going to find that right property as well. Like you could have asked me like a year ago, I've had a client come to me and say, oh, Jaz, remember we spoke about it last year. Prices have changed.
Yeah, and also I don't remember. No, right. I mean, you might do, but it's like,
it's one of those situations, right? So have the offer in your hand. I have some clients that say to me, Jaz, I want to get my mortgage offer in place first before I instruct you. Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely fine. But then do bear in mind that you are going to instruct me at a point where then I need to apply for searches. That's going to take the transaction, something I would have completed my searches by the time I would have got the mortgage offer. I'm probably going to start my searches when I get the mortgage offer.
Okay. So in terms of I think this is the part that's really helpful. I think when people come to solicitors, they're not aware of the things you need to do. So they're like, what do you mean we're just doing searches? So I think let's go through blow by blow. It might seem boring to you to do this, but I think it's really it isn't. Now, I'm not convinced. I'm an ILA lawyer. So I'm like, what goes on? And I'm still a lawyer, right? And so I'm still interested by that. So I have no doubt the listeners, property developers, investors, brokers who I see posts all the time freaking out about their lawyer not having done the work, which some of it probably is true, there definitely is. Unfortunately, lawyers are very overworked. Yeah. But some of it could be that a lack of understanding of the procedure or how it goes through. So hit us up. Tell us from start to finish. Sure.
So to get your ducks in a row, so to speak, have your ID in place. So we always go back and forth on this because what clients do is they provide me with a passport copy and the passport isn't signed. And they're like, come on, Jaz, it's my passport. You can see it's my passport. It's just for compliance reasons. I need a signature on it. I need it to match all the contracts, mortgage documents. So if you're going to give me a passport, make sure it's signed, make sure it's in date. Or if you don't have a passport, driving license. Then we move on to proof of address. Make sure it's dated within the last 3 to 6 months and it's either a utility bill or a bank statement. Moving from there, then it's source of funds. Now, this is the one where it kills me as a solicitor because this is probably the hardest part of my job because the clients are like, but I've told the broker and I've told the agent and you're asking me, I'm telling you my money's there. I need to understand how you got the money. Yeah. You sold a house, show me a copy of the completion statement. If it's salary, show me a copy of your pay slips. Yeah. But I think there's so much back and forth because clients are like, but why? But why? But why? And I think the quicker we understand this is just the way it is. Yeah,
the quicker we can get done. To touch on that, I had a friend, a few people I know who've done this actually, where they've had their source of funds from crypto. So can you talk to me about source of funds that are not being accepted by lawyers?
That being one of them, to be honest.
Crypto's not accepted, guys. Don't do it. It's going to muck up your transaction. Unfortunately, frustrating. I'm a crypto fan, so frustrating that is. But it's not currently accepted.
No.
So if you cash out your 100 grand crypto that you've been investing for years and you try and use that towards your property, it's going to get rejected by the law firm.
Yes,
most
absolutely.
Law firms, any of them accepting it, or
I think there must be. I don't know actually. I know mine isn't, so we're definitely not, to be honest. But it's not just crypto. It depends where your money is actually coming from in different countries as well. So we have a list of high risk countries. So I think South Africa's on there, Yemen's on there, and there's quite a few, like a list.
Okay.
And if you type into Google high risk country, and if your country is named on there, chances are the solicitor's just not going to accept it. Cool. The regulations just doesn't allow us to accept monies where there's like movement from that country to us, really. So there's that to bear in mind too.
And then the thing is, I think, again, this is where the understanding can be really important. Because actually then a lot of solicitors get a load of shit for that. And it also is just like sometimes like the hands are just tied. There's nothing they can do about that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like working together. This whole podcast is bringing together our community, understanding how we can work together to make deals quicker, easier, smoother. This is one of the ways, okay? So source of funds, that's that. Yeah. Once you've done your source of funds check and they've got a green tick, then
we wait for the sales memorandum. But I say wait because some agents are like, well, we need to wait for the buyer solicitors to get their solicitor's details or seller solicitor. So the quicker we get everyone on board and be like, right, this is my acting solicitor, the sales memorandum can come out. Now, the sales memorandum, it sets out the name of the solicitors, it sets out the purchase price, if there's any conditions. Like my client said to me, Jaz, it's probably not in the contents form, but I'm also buying the AC units. Okay. Had it not been in the sales memorandum, the client not informing me, I'd be none the wiser.
Who produces the sales memorandum?
The estate agent.
With the client's input, I guess.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
like things like the aircon and things. Right, yeah, and you just won't know if it's been left off.
Right, I wouldn't have known any wiser. Like sometimes, like, you get property brochures. Am I going to really see an AC unit? Probably not. The probably photo hasn't even captured it. So it's things like that. I always say, when you instruct your solicitor, make sure like they're like your best friend on the other call. Any changes, anything like, you've done a drive-by and be like, oh, Jaz, I've just noticed something. Can you just ask them? Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I'm always like, don't hesitate to call me. Like I've had clients say to me, Jaz, is it okay for me to call you? Of course. Like that's what you're paying me for.
Well, I mean, a lot of solicitors don't answer their phones.
Right?
That's the part of the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's scary that now clients are asking me that question because that shouldn't be a question.
Yeah.
Right?
And on the sales memorandum, this is just from when I bought my first house. And it sounds, again, the whole part of this point of this podcast is we're asking questions that could appear stupid because sometimes I don't know the answer. Well, I don't know everything. And also so that it's available for anybody from starting out up to experience. Now, when I bought my house, part of the garden had like all these beautiful trees in there that I wanted in my house. I didn't put it in a sales memorandum. It just, I had a garden, And for some unknown reason, they chopped down this tree. Like, so when we moved in, it wasn't there, but the tree was blocking this massive other house. So it was like I wasn't happy about it. What type of detail? Can you put a tree in a sales memorandum? Am I buying the tree? Like, what do you put in there?
No, I mean, I would think it's more like fixtures. And like, I wouldn't have put a tree. Like,
no, because why do you cut my tree down?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we want
I would have
fixtures.
gone back and renegotiated on my price though.
Well, I'd already moved in, picked up the key. I didn't know until we'd gone there. I walked in the garden, was like, where's the tree gone? Because honestly, the whole side of another house was then on show.
No.
Yeah, I wasn't that happy about that. But I mean, it's quite a first world problem, isn't it, nonetheless? But yeah, I think, so what do we put in there? We don't put things like garden stuff, but we're putting in things like fixtures and fittings.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've had any kind of like even verbal communication with the agent, make sure it's all in writing. Right. Make sure you're then forwarding it over to your solicitor. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the sales memorandum, but I guess the sales memorandum just helps me pick up. But if you email me separately, that's absolutely fine too. It's just I want to gather enough information about that property that I may not see really, and then I can go back to the other side. Okay. And then from there on, once we got the sales memorandum, we contact the other side, we ask for a contract pack. By contract pack, that would have like who owns the property, the boundaries of the line. Like I've had a client say to me, Jaz, I'm owning the property, but I'm also owning the garage. I couldn't see the garage in that boundary. It just happened to be the seller solicitors forgot to send over the title documents, which was a different title. The garage was on a separate road. And it wasn't in the sales memorandum. It wasn't in the brochure.
Oh, because of course, the garages sometimes are in different roads, right? They're not on the same, they're not attached to the property.
Right. So just like you might think that, oh, well, it goes without saying I'm buying a garage. It doesn't.
Gosh, yeah, because then that garage would then, if you hadn't picked up on that, would then belong still to the previous owner.
Absolutely. And that just opens a can of worms, right?
Yeah, and it's not intentional. It's just, it's how it's happened. Yeah, okay, interesting.
So we look at that. We look at the property form, which will set out what works, I guess, the sellers would have done to the property, whether they've had any flooding. We would have looked at the contents form, which we just spoke about. We'd look at the EPC rating. And any other associated documents that the seller thinks that will be helpful to the buyer. So would review all of those, would raise any inquiries on top of that. And then in the meantime, I normally advise clients to get a surveyor's report. And what clients come back to me and say is, well, Jaz, I've got the lender, they've got their own valuer going in. I don't need a surveyor's report. Yes, you do. And the reason I suggest that, I mean, you don't have to, but it's like I advise it because what a lender's looking at is the price you paid is the correct price. They're not looking at your electrics, your gas, none of that. They're not even looking at the cracks sometimes. Like your surveyor is going to look at even like the roof tiles. They're going to go into your loft if they can have access to it.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised like how many times prices get renegotiated just based on that surveyor's report.
Yeah, do you know what? I saw a post recently, I think a couple of days ago, that was like, your estate agent does not value your house, your surveyor does. Your estate agent is not a valuer. They don't actually, obviously,
it's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, like, and I was like, shit, I didn't really think of that, do you? I don't know. When we're talking about surveys, what type of surveys can we get? I get from residential up to like bridging. Like,
I
what
would
type
say
of
like
surveys
always start off with like a home buyer survey.
Yeah.
And that would just set out, they would just go into the property and they'll do a run check. Now, if they think that, oh, you know, I think there's Japanese knotweed or there's like something a bit more intricate, then you can get more into like specialist kind of reports.
Right.
But I think the most basic would be just go from there really and then start your way up. And then they can advise you accordingly as well, right?
Yeah. And do you get... Am I right in thinking you have ones that can be like desktop based or home visit ones? But which one would you, or is there not desktop surveys?
No, I think that's with lenders.
That's with lenders, right? Okay, so that's slightly different. That's what the lender would go and do, whereas we're getting as the individual buyer.
Yeah.
This is other type of surveys.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And then once you've got your survey done, give that to you.
Yeah, hand that over to me.
Yeah.
We would have applied for searches in the meantime. I would review that surveyor along with the searches. And then the only reason I do that is because sometimes the report might say there's a single story extension. There should be planning approvals. If the local search would normally pick up on that, there's no reason for me to then query it with the solicitors. It shows it's been registered and they've got the correct authority and documents there. I would then also look at the environmental search that would have come back. That would have looked at whether the land is contaminated, you know, whether there's been any flooding, prone to flooding. And then we would also look at water and drainage search. And that would pretty much pick up, you know, like whether the mains are connected, whether there's like a pipe going through the boundary. And that's quite important because there may be a situation where the seller has extended the rear of their property. There's a boundary, there's a water pipe going underneath that. Did they get planning permission? Not from the local council, but from Thames Water. Okay. So we do need to make sure that we have like kind of like a build-over agreement, we call it, or an indemnity policy if they don't have a build-over agreement.
Right. And the indemnity policy protects you in case you later get told you need to rectify
I mean, it doesn't cover everything.
Right.
That's the problem with indemnity policies. Like, I think clients come to me and be like, oh, Jaz, we can just get an indemnity policy. I don't need searches.
Just stick a plaster over it.
Right. And I think what the indemnity policy is, like some of them only cover legal costs. They don't even cover like the tearing down of the building and like making it right. So it's so important. And I understand like clients just want to move into that property and do their own thing and move on to the next chapter. But you just don't want it to cost you like thousands of pounds in like years to come. And I certainly don't want a negligence case and be like, well, you are the solicitor. I'm the client.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So it's just making sure that we've got the correct documents. And if it is an indemnity policy that we're going through, there's a reason I'm doing an indemnity policy. It's the right course of action here. Sure. And then once we've got all of that back, then it's time for me to report to the client, which is me pretty much saying, you read everything, check everything. If you've got any questions on that, on the other side of the call, otherwise sign. Let's start discussing dates.
Okay, so when we're talking about dates for exchange and completion?
It kind of depends. I have some clients that say to me, Jaz, I just want to exchange and complete the same day. That's absolutely fine.
Well, that's
it's
the
doable,
dream, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
Or they'll be like, you know what, I need to do exchange now. By exchange, they're saying we're giving 10% to the other side. We're committed to this purchase. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then it commits the other side as well. Like they can't, if they're going to take on another offer, there's going to be like penalties involved, interest, costs. And then we move on to completion day, which is collection of keys.
And in terms of all the other stuff you spoke about just then, in the background, when all these like surveys and things are going on, you are doing things like with land registry. Like, I mean, land registry gets called out a lot in terms of like them being slow. Who are you having to go out to as a third party that could be impacting the process? What are you doing?
So it's never the land registry. The only time we will probably contact the land registry is towards the end to say, look, there's a completion. We've completed and this is the documents that you need to do to transfer over. Yeah. In the midst of all that, the worst case I've ever dealt with is a managing agent and a freehold. And that would probably only crop up if you're dealing with a leasehold transaction. Okay. And that's only because we're trying to get the full service charge accounts, the ground rent. We're trying to understand, does the ground rent escalate? And if it escalates too much, is there something we can do about it? And those kind of conversations usually only happen with the managing agent solicitors or the freeholders. And they're not the fastest of people. And I think that's where the delay is. So I always say to clients, like, when they give me a timeline, I'm like, is it a freehold or a leasehold? Because that will kind of give me an idea of where we're going to be, really.
And the searches that you do, I know, again, we spoke about all the different things that were going on throughout this process, but like, what searches are you specifically doing? Conveyancers do searches. What are the searches?
So there's always mainly 3.
Yeah.
And they're local search, environmental, and then the water and drainage.
And where do you do those?
So it's a system, it's a portal.
Okay.
So we just pop in the postcode, we order it, and it gives you a return date of each of those searches.
How long roughly do they take?
Depends on council to council. So I think water and drainage, environmental comes back the next working day.
Okay.
So, and then whereas the water and drainage takes about 2 weeks or so. And then the local search is like probably the one that's taking 3 to 4 weeks.
Right. So that is a thing that can slow it down. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Sometimes you can just contact the council and be like, look, can you expedite it? Because this is the only thing we're waiting on. And sometimes they'll just push it through.
And I guess if you've done that at the start, it should be... So should a solicitor really be doing that kind of right away?
Yeah, exactly that. So as soon as you got your contract pack, you should just be applying for searches, really. So by the time the client would have got their mortgage offer back, their surveyor's report back, they've done their own inspections, I would have got the local searches back as well. Yeah, so effectively, it should be all streamlined like that.
Yeah, no, amazing. And then coming up to the end of the process, what actually happens on exchange and completion? Let's say in a dream world we're doing it at the same time. Even if they're spread apart, it doesn't matter for this explanation. What is happening?
So in the background, once we receive all the monies, we send it across to the seller's solicitors. We pick up the phone, we go through the contract and be like, this is the buyer, this is the seller, this is the purchase price, go through the conditions. And then we say, right, we've exchanged and we've completed. And then they will contact the agent. And once they've made that call to the agent to say release keys, I'll make the call to my client to be like, we're all done.
Yeah. It makes it sound so easy, doesn't it?
It does.
That telephone call, like, have we exchanged? And the solicitor's like, yep. Yeah. And it's like, do you know what? Obviously, again, I'm a solicitor, and even I'm still like, wow, it's actually, it's something that we hear so much stress around because it is really stressful. It is. But I just feel like if you have the right solicitor, like how you've just explained it, I'm like, okay, yeah, what's the problem then? Yeah. But it's just sadly that so many solicitors are really overworked. Like as a law firm owner myself, I'm already aware that actually the law firms could be doing better here because these solicitors are overworked, which is creating bad reputation in the industry. Because when you explain it like that, it sounds lovely. And then the exchange sounds that, you're on it. You're calling them up, you're making that conversation. It's like, what, how many minutes does exchange take then?
Literally less than 5 minutes.
Whoa. Yeah, so let that land for a minute. Less than 5 minutes. I think we're just going to leave it there because that's where we're at, right? That is the process from start to finish. And it's really good to hear this process because I think so many of us just don't know. And like I said, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a conveyancing lawyer. And even I don't know the steps and the processes. When I bought my own house, I was like, God, like what next? Why is this taking long? Or, sadly, the kind of thing is like, whose fault is this? Because it feels like there's a broker, a lender, solicitor, and you don't know who's responsible for what. Yeah. And I think if we can work that out or we know who's responsible, it helps us as the client, the developer, the home buyer to know who we're asking those questions of. And I think it's a communication
thing as well, to be honest. Right now, I'm in quite a few WhatsApp groups with my client, with the broker, with the agent. We're all in this group and we know, right, okay, who's doing what. And sometimes that works. And if you've got a solicitor like that, I think that is like a game changer.
Yeah. Amazing, Jaz. No, and on that note, where can people find you if they did want to work with you? Which I don't see why you wouldn't want to after that.
You can find me on LinkedIn under Jaz Dhaliwal. You can find me on Instagram on UK property_solicitor. And then, all on socials.
Yeah, and we'll be popping Jaz's details on this podcast. So if you do need to reach out and ask any questions about the process, whether you're a solicitor perhaps who's still finding their feet and needing some more education, you can speak to Jaz. I'm sure she'd be happy to help. Jaz has also just released a book, which is actually focused on helping children to understand properties, because so many children, like you said, I think you shared earlier, that your children would come home and feel like everyone lives in a house, and not everybody does. There's so many property types.
Absolutely.
And in using your incredible experience, you've written this book for children too. So if anybody's interested in kind of educating their children on this, Jaz is a fantastic person to speak to. Go buy her book. And then if you're interested in finding a solicitor to help you with your transaction, Jaz is a fantastic person to speak to. So,
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank you for having me. That's been amazing.
Yeah, you've been so helpful. Thank you. And don't forget to tune in again soon for the next expert drop coming soon. Mwah!